All right, board fam, we got more coping about the Odyssey. This is a Ryan Kinel video. It is titled, let me hover it over so I can find the title. The Odyssey box office off to a huge start after massive controversy. So let's see if Ryan Kinel can get through a whole video just admitting, taking the L, that they were wrong about this movie being a massive flop on opening weekend.
Well, after weeks of controversy and backlash and predictions and actresses running their mouths, the Odyssey was finally released this weekend. And I certainly expected the Odyssey to do big numbers on opening weekend. I don't know if I quite expected this big of an opening, but certainly.
Oh, that's interesting. So you're not able to predict box offices. It's almost like you just make guesses and then you claim victory as if you know something. Like when Supergirl underperformed, you acted like it was always going to be that. You knew that it was going to be bad. You knew the numbers were going to be that bad, right? No speculation whatsoever. You totally knew. But then you have this one that overperformed expectations. And now you're like, man, I couldn't have ever guessed that. I mean, I always thought it was going to do well, even though I made video after video after video talking about how it was going to be bad and flop watched it from day one. I always knew it was going to do well, but it overperformed. Interesting. It's almost like I don't know what I'm talking about.
Certainly, it was in the news a lot for the wrong reasons, typically, in the lead up to this. We saw the terrible miscast, Black Helen of Troy, trans Ellen Page playing a Greek warrior. We saw the hypocritical stances from the mainstream media, praising the authentic casting for Polynesian culture for something like Moana. However, then praising the fact that Black people are replacing Greeks in Chris.
Oh, this is the go-to then. This is like the third video I've watched where all of a sudden now Greek representation matters to these guys. This is bullshit. Don't, there's no point in listening to this, right? Like the whole Greek thing is a non-factor for Ryan, for Nerdrotic, for most of these guys, right? It's just been a non-factor. Variety did an article about the casting in Moana, which, by the way, they did cultural casting in the actual animated film. Okay, so not really surprising that they did it with the live action movie, quite honestly. But these guys don't care about that. Again, I'm going to reiterate this. This isn't a position they hold. This isn't their position. They're arguing against Variety, who has a bunch of different writers writing articles. They're trying to say Variety now, all of a sudden, they praise people that do diverse casting, but they also say that maybe trolling Black people and being racist towards Black people is not a good thing. That somehow that makes them hypocritical. It makes Variety hypocritical. The reality is that Ryan and none of these guys gave a fuck about casting Greek people when the movie was going into its opening weekend because they were betting on the movie underperforming. They were betting on at least the critics or the fans to give the movie a bad score. And none of that happened. All of a sudden now, where are my Greek people at? Where are they? I know because I made videos about these fucks. I called them out on this a month ago. They were making video after video after video, none of them asking for Greek representation. None of them. But now, all of a sudden, now they care.
For Nolan's The Odyssey. We heard Lupita Nyong'o and basically all the female cast members talk about what a feminized version of The Odyssey this was and how it really brought women to the forefront and changed.
Which by the way, it didn't. So, I mean, like they were talking about from their perspective, but if you watch the movie, it's still about men. The movie is still about men.
Changed Homer's story. And of course, we saw people like John Leguizamo somehow hypocritically say that he's fighting for Latino representation while taking jobs away from Greek actors. But when
everybody in the movie did. If you're going to nitpick about his statement, regardless of what he said, everybody in the movie took a job away from a Greek actor. So it doesn't matter that he said it. Just saying it doesn't mean anything when everyone took jobs away from Greek actors, if you're going to stand on that kind of business.
All that was said and done, how is the movie going to perform at the box office? And at least in its opening weekend, it was pretty massive, especially for a rated R, almost 3-hour movie. The Odyssey stuns with $124 million opening weekend.
Crazy.
Third biggest debut of the year. Now,
I thought it was get woke, go broke. I thought that was the mantra. I thought that was the formula, right? You get woke, meaning you cast women, people of color, trans people, gay people, whatever. You get woke and then you go broke, because if that isn't always the case, then the saying doesn't mean anything. The saying doesn't make sense if it doesn't always happen. It doesn't say sometimes get woke, sometimes go broke. It doesn't say you might go broke if you get woke. No, it says get woke, go broke. So you guys accuse this movie of being a DEI movie with woke casting. So the movie, in fact, got woke. It was a feminist movie. That's super woke. And it didn't go broke. Interesting.
It was projected to be around $100 million. That's where most of the projections had it coming into the weekend domestically. Ends up overperforming at $124 million. The worldwide total is the bigger one because that was projected. I saw around 200, 220, right around that area. I thought it was going to be around 220. That goes all the way up to $264 million. It is the biggest debut of Christopher Nolan's career. Now, obviously, you got to put caveats on everything because we're comparing this to things that came out 15 years ago, which if you factored inflation.
The inflation thing is funny because you never factor in the inflation for the budgets. You don't look at those things. You just go, well, for inflation, this is how much it made at the box office. And these were the amount of tickets sold. But you don't factor in inflation or like cost of living or anything like that back then. You just look at the inflation numbers. It's such a bad faith argument. And it's actually a pretty big cope, to be quite honest.
Factored actual ticket sales in, it would not be the biggest. However, this is a big number for a movie like this. The Odyssey becomes Christopher Nolan's biggest global debut of all time with $264 million.
Why is there no article about this on Geeks and Gamers? Why are you reading Variety? Didn't you just get mad at Variety a second ago for having a double standard for being hypocrites? Wasn't that you? Weren't you just reading from Geeks and Gamers? Why didn't Geeks and Gamers write an article about how big the box office was for Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey? Is it because they don't want their readers to get this information? Is that why? Would it look bad for them after spending months and months and months of flop watching and poisoning the well? Would it look bad for Geeks and Gamers to put out an article about how well the movie performed? I think it probably would. I don't know. It's just speculation, right?
And now that is the third biggest opening behind the Super Mario Galaxy movie and Toy Story 5. Now, things to keep in mind, because there's some people that are already saying, oh, look, it's over. This thing's a massive, huge hit. Everybody who said that this thing wasn't going to be accepted. I think it's a little early to tell anything.
Oh, it's too early. But you guys were doing flop videos about Supergirl on Sunday, right? It's too early. When you guys make a prediction that the movie is going to underperform, and the first weekend, the biggest weekend, the weekend where things like this are front loaded because of the director attached to it, the actual hype around the movie, those big weekends, that's typically a good sign when the opening weekend overperforms to this level. It's a good sign when the critics are all scoring it high. It's a good sign when it has an A cinema score. It's a good sign when the movie itself is getting good word of mouth between people. It's all a good sign, but it's too early to celebrate. So we can't celebrate the opening weekend of the movie? You guys celebrate when movies flop. When Supergirl had an awful opening weekend, you were right on the tails of that. Matter of fact, the weekend wasn't even out. Y'all were out on Sunday night calling it a flop. I wake up Monday morning, 5,000 videos about how Supergirl is a flop. But now, because you guys took a massive L on this opening weekend, now it's too early. So now we're going to shift the goalpost, and we're going to talk about total sales. We're not talking about the opening weekend or the opening night or the scores or any of that. Now, because nothing that they've said has come to pass, it is time to move that goalpost to something else. And what that goalpost is going to get moved to is another weekend or total box office. And they're going to spout off some number about how much it needs to break even, blah, blah, blah. This is their playbook. Go ahead and prove me right, Ryan.
At this point in time, because yes, it is a big opening. Okay. It certainly needs to have a very, very, very good hold over the next month or so to get to that $1 billion mark, which is really the threshold for success for this movie.
Based on what? Has Christopher Nolan come out and said that he expects to make $1 billion? Did he say that? Did the studio say that? Did anyone associated with the film say that their concept of success is the $1 billion mark? The reason why these guys say 1 billion, regardless of what the budget of the movie is, doesn't matter if the movie is 100 million, 200 million, 250 million, $1 billion is the number they go to because it's such an easy, flat number, right? It's a number they can go, they almost got there. They almost got to it. It's one of those numbers where they know that it's an extremely high bar. It's a flat number, and they can hold it over the head of these movies and directors and actors and stuff like that. That's why. Nobody associated with this film has said the movie needs to make $1 billion. And any other speculation on that is creating a narrative that is about as mythological as the Odyssey itself.
This movie was meant to be $1 billion movie with a $250 million plus.
No one said that, bro.
Budget with a massive marketing budget. The break even's likely in the $750 to $800 million range. That's the break even point for this movie.
Yeah. It's funny how all these movies, the break even point is always around 700, 800. It doesn't matter if it's a $175 million movie, a $250 million movie. The break even point is always it's like right outside of that margin of like most movies today, which is 5 or 6. It's always right outside of that. Yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. You're not a box office analyst.
Movie at the theaters with Chris Nolan coming off Oppenheimer, which only almost made $1 billion, with The Odyssey, one of the most well-known stories in history, and a story that's persisted for 3.
So I would say this, like, I don't know if it's going to make $1 billion or not. I don't really care. It had a really great opening weekend, and it fucking pissed these guys off. That's incredible. If it does make $1 billion, they'll still come up with another prop. Like just know right now they're saying that it needs to make $1 billion. So if it gets close to $1 billion or makes $1 billion, they'll come up with another excuse for why the movie isn't good.
1,000 years. Yeah, $1 billion is like the goal. That is absolutely in your mind when you make this movie.
Totally.
And for reference, something like Super Mario Galaxy, which opened over $100 million more than this, barely limped across $1 billion. So certainly.
Right. So the two movies are the same. Yeah. Great box office analysis there.
A long way to go for the Odyssey, and how the general audience feels about it's going to be a big determining factor. Now, I think the word of mouth has been very good for the movie overall. Yes. I watched this and I honestly feel very meh about it.
It's a mid movie. There we go. Concession. Thank you, Ryan, for conceding. It's a meh movie. You lost, bro. You lost. You guys lost. The opening weekend was incredible. You needed this opening weekend to suck. You needed this critic scores to suck. You needed the fan scores to suck. You needed word of mouth to be bad. But no, it's just your community. And it's not even all of your community. A lot of your community has decided it's not a battle worth fighting, right? They've already bowed out of it. But anytime, I just need to reiterate this. If it's your first time watching my video, make sure you subscribe to become a part of the channel. Anytime these guys call a movie mid after they spent months flop watching it and poisoning the well and outrage grifting off of it, if they say it's meh or mid, that is a concession that the movie is good. That's interesting. Let's see. Is he going to get a numeric score?
About a 5 out of 10. I don't know if I'm going to shift too much out of that.
A 5 out of 10.
I think there's moments.
It's nothing better than flop watching a movie and then giving it a 5 out of 10. Nothing better than that. We love to see it.
Where the filmmaking and the spectacle is pretty incredible. I think that parts of it are well acted. I think parts of it are terribly acted.
Right.
For me,
which parts are terribly acted? I wonder if it's the trans person and the black people or the Latino or I wonder who it is that's bad.
Biggest problem with this movie are the changes that they made to the story. And quite frankly, when you have a story that's 3,000 years old and has remained relevant for that long, I don't think you really need to try to improve this story, especially.
Well, except for the fact that it's already been changed like 100 times, but go off, Queen.
If you're subverting it, if you're weaving this undercurrent of modern day feminism through the entire thing, if you're taking a character like
what is that? What is the modern day feminism that we're talking about? Is it in the room with us right now? I'm not sure what you mean by that. You guys keep saying that this is what the story is telling us, but it doesn't say it in the movie. So it's just you guys creating a narrative around the story that you want your viewers to have, because you know a lot of your viewers didn't go and see it.
Odysseus and inherently changing him, right? Taking away that hunger and drive and passion to get home to his family, to his kingdom.
So these guys all have the same talking points. This is the third video this week that I've watched from this group on YouTube, and all of them have the same exact complaints because they're trying to make sure that they all sort of line up with each other because they don't want to have too many different narratives. They want some very clean narratives. So this is the same complaint I've heard. Like, most people that like the movie haven't said anything about this, but this specific corner of YouTube have the same exact complaints about the movie.
And the most clever man in the world, and instead turn this into a guy who just actually feels a lot of guilt and fucking hates himself and doesn't even really want to go home. When you make the entire story a premise about how actually violent and brutal and evil men are if they're not held back, and how they'll really destroy civilization if we don't hold them back.
Right. We don't have any proof that men have done that. So that's not historically accurate that men have destroyed things in civilizations around the world throughout history. I don't know. It seems a little bit accurate to me, but okay.
I really don't think that these were the things that Homer was telling us in the Odyssey all those years ago. That's one of the reasons.
So you want to translate it yourself, right? So you're like, I don't like this translation. I'm going to create my own translation. Okay, that's cool. I'd love to hear your whole story based on the works of Homer, the person that we don't even know if it was a real person or not. Let's continue.
I have major problems with it. I think that some of the castings are perfectly fine and even solid even. I think Matt Damon, Anne Hathaway, Tom Holland, and Robert Pattinson were the standouts for the movie. Right. I think all of them acted fine to really good at points in this movie.
But they're not Greek. I thought you had an issue with that. They're just white. They're not Greek. Okay.
The downsides are the most distracting castings. Lupita Nyong'o as Black Helen of Troy. Right. Completely and totally pointless. She was disfigured because they wanted you to think that her husband beat her because, of course, all women are fucking victims in this entire fucking movie, right?
Interesting. So women were treated kind back then? There were no women victims in that era? That doesn't seem very historically accurate to me, Ryan. But also, of course, you have an issue with the black woman. And it doesn't matter what she did. Her just being present in the movie would have annoyed you because you were mad about it before you ever saw the movie.
That was a predominant theme. Even Cersei was a fucking victim throughout this whole thing. And so that was distracting. Ellen Page, really distracting.
Elliot Page.
Not a ton of screen time, but her, and should I say his character, but it's her, the actress.
Right. Yeah, you can't keep it straight because you don't even know what you should be saying because you're so transphobic, it just fucks with your brain. Let's continue.
Story is prevalent throughout the entire thing.
Right.
The entire thing. Even when not on screen, her storyline has threads that weave throughout the entire fucking story.
Right. The trans person is so disgusting to you that simply having them there to establish the story now taints the whole movie for you because you can't get the stink of the trans person out of your mind. That's brain rot, Ryan. That's incredible brain rot. It just means that you need to stop thinking about people the way you do and just enjoy the fucking movie.
Major problems, including Odysseus's crew just being a random assortment of DEI hires, an Indian, a black guy, and a fucking Asian who are standing on.
Right, a fucking Asian. Man, just the racism is crazy. The racism is just fucking crazy. No issues with the white casting, but every other person in the movie who isn't white is a problem. They're DEI. Even though there's no Greek people, and you already established that at the beginning of this video. It's just fucking disgusting, man. These guys are so fucking gross.
On a shoreline and saying, we're Greeks from Ithaca. Shut the fuck up. As a movie itself, I think it has pacing issues. I think the sound and the score are
same shit. All of them are saying.
To not do a traditional score for this. I don't think it works most of the time. Every once in a while, there's moments where I think it does work. It's a meh movie for me. It's a 5 out of 10. It's about as mid can get.
It's a nice concession. I do appreciate you reconfirming for us that you took the L. I love that. I love that for you.
Fortunately, is maybe the least interesting thing to talk about. If a movie's really great or really shitty, it's more interesting to talk about than anything else. Yeah. But the question remains, we had some massive pre-sale tickets for IMAX for this. All the premium format screens are sold out. It overperformed people's projections, had a really good first weekend at the box office.
Right.
And if it has a typical Chris Nolan movie type of hold, it's probably going to end up crossing $1 billion.
Right.
The question is, will it? And you know how many
Right.
people have been turned off by some of the controversies around this? How many people?
Why would they be turned off from the controversy if it didn't affect the first weekend, Ryan? Let's be serious. Let's be serious. The people that would have been the most engaged with this movie, the ones that would have seen all of that, were the ones that were going to go on opening weekend. Because now it moves on from advertisement to word of mouth, right? The second weekend is that word of mouth weekend where people decide if they're going to go based on things they're hearing from friends, things they're seeing online. Anecdotally, people that I know that don't really see movies like this are probably going to see the movie this week because they saw people talking about it positively online. So we know this. The advertising phase is pretty much over. The interview cycle's pretty much over. So those controversies aren't going to affect the second weekend. Let's be serious.
People, even if they are turned off by those controversies, will see positive word of mouth from a lot of people and say,
Yes.
hey, I'm going to go watch this anyway. Certainly, if you're a lover of the art of filmmaking, there's a lot you can take away from going to watch this movie. But we finally have the opening weekend. It is a big, big number. Some people are already claiming victory. Some people are saying, well, if you like this movie, you're lying.
Well, it is a victory because you guys wanted it to flop on the opening weekend. That's what I'm saying. Not every battle is the war, right? So the war would be the total run of the movie. We will see at the end of that whether or not all of the battles have led to a victory in the war. Because it's how it is with these guys. So the opening weekend is the first battle. It went through that battle and succeeded incredibly well. So it is a victory. It's the beginning of what could be a bigger victory at the end. So yeah, people are going to take this as a victory. You guys lost. Take the L. You lost this weekend.
Lying about it. If you hate this movie, you're lying about it, and everything in between. The conversation surrounding the Odyssey is not done yet after one opening weekend, because we're going to have to see how it does next weekend, how it holds when Spider-Man comes into theaters and honestly is going to dominate everything. But for right now, the Odyssey with a big opening weekend. What will the story be a couple weeks from now? We'll have to keep an eye on it.
I want to point out these numbskulls here. We're heading into the end of July. There's no competition for the Odyssey or Spider-Man through August. Nolan's movie is going to stay in theaters probably longer than 4 weekends. Probably longer. Which means it'll be running side by side with Spider-Man for at least the first 2, maybe 3 weeks of Spider-Man. And then Spider-Man will run through to the end of August, probably to the beginning of September. So the movie's probably got maybe 5 or 6 weeks of runtime to make its money. And it's the only competition it has is Spider-Man, and that's it. Those two movies have no competition after Spider-Man comes out. It's just the two of them. So anybody who understands the box office would go, there's a high probability the movie is probably still going to perform well based solely on the fact that it's only up against one other movie, and people going out to see the movies in August are going to go see one of these two movies probably. Maybe an animated film. That's it. If you look ahead to August, there's really no competition. But hey, I'll take the victories where I can get them. You gave it a 5 out of 10. That to me is good enough to be an L on your part. You have admitted defeat on the opening weekend, and that's great. Battle's not over. We have to see where this goes at the end of its run. And I really hope the movie does cross $1 billion to see what the next excuse is going to be. I really want to know what the next excuse is.